Is Russia believed one thing made it untouchable: distance. The endless frozen lands, the vast forests, the mountain ranges stretching across Russia, the sheer size of the Russian Federation itself, a nation so massive that enemies would break long before reaching its heart. But in the age of autonomous warfare, geography no longer guarantees survival. And one terrifying night in April 2026, that illusion exploded into flames, not at the front line, not near Moscow, but deep inside Russia's own strategic area nearly 1,700 kilometers away from Ukraine. What happened that night did not just shock the Kremlin, it forced military strategists around the world to confront a brutal new reality. The future of war no longer belongs only to billion-dollar fighter jets. It belongs to intelligent machines, cheap enough to mass produce, smart enough to hunt on their own, and deadly enough to cripple a superpower from thousands of kilometers away. Because on that historic night, Ukraine proved something that the world once thought impossible. Nowhere in Russia was truly safe anymore. Months before the attack, panic had already started spreading quietly through Russia's military command. Ukraine's increasingly sophisticated long-range strike had begun reaching deeper into Russian territory. Strategic airfields once considered untouchable were suddenly under threat. One incident shocked Moscow more than any other: the strike on the Su-57 facilities near Ertubsk. The attack triggered alarm inside the Kremlin's military leadership. If Ukraine could threaten Russia's most advanced stealth fighter program there, what would stop future attacks elsewhere? Russia reacted immediately. Sensitive aircraft were ordered away from western military districts. Rare fighter jets, strategic bombers, advanced aviation assets all began disappearing from bases closer to the Ukrainian border. The operation was massive. Aircraft components moved under darkness, cargo trains traveled at night. Military trams operated under radio silence transfer flights avoided standard communication routes. The destination, Shago Air Base, a military installation hiding deep inside Chelyabinsk Oblast, beyond the Ural Mountains, a region Russian planners believed was safely outside Ukraine's reach. To the Kremlin, the Urals represented security, a neutral shield, strategic sanctuary, and there Russia believed its most valuable air asset could finally breathe safely again. But there was one catastrophic problem: Ukraine knows everything that is happening. Modern war is no longer fought only with missiles and tanks. It is fought with data, satellite surveillance, cyber infiltration, signals intelligence, rail movement analysis, thermal tracking, encrypted communication interception. And according to Ukrainian intelligence sources, Russian relocation operation was compromised. Almost from the beginning, the movement of aircraft across railway lines, the sudden increase in military cargo traffic, unusual fuel logistics, restricted air corridors, all of it created patterns. Ukraine's intelligence system quietly connected piece by piece. Then came confirmation from deep cover Parisian networks operating inside Russia itself. By the time the aircraft reached Shago, Ukrainian intelligence reportedly already knew how many aircraft arrived, where they were parked, what shelters they used, and even the apron coordinates. What Russia considered a secret sanctuary had already become a target. Then came the night that changed everything. 25th April 2026. Darkness covered the skies over the Urals. Inside Shago Air Base, crews believed they were safe, far from the front, far from missiles, far from the war itself. Then the drones came. Not ordinary drones, not commercial quadcopters, not simple remote-controlled aircraft. They were long-range autonomous strike systems built specifically for deep penetration warfare. Ukrainian-made chemicalized drones, silent, low-flying, difficult to detect, designed to survive electronic warfare environment. Some reports suggested these drones use AI-assisted terrain recognition system capable of navigating even when GPS signals were jammed. Others allegedly operated using optical guidance and preloaded route mapping. For years, Russia invested billions into electronic warfare systems designed to blind incoming threats. But these machines were built for exactly that environment. They kept flying, hour after hour, deep into Russian airspace, over forest, across frozen terrain, beneath radar coverage, until finally they reached Chagor. The attack unfolded in seconds. Witnesses reportedly described sudden explosions tearing through the darkness as drones descended onto packed aircraft lined across the apron. Fireballs erupted across the base. Emergency crews rushed into chaos. Sirens echoed through the freezing night. By dawn, the damage was impossible to hide. Satellite imagery soon began circulating online. Burnt aircraft, scorched parking zones, emergency recovery operations, damaged planes dragged away from visible position in apparent attempt to reduce satellite exposure. The psychological impact was immediate because Chagor was never supposed to be vulnerable. That was the entire point. Russia had moved these aircraft there specifically because it believed Ukraine could not reach them. And yet Ukraine had reached them anyway. The reported targets were not ordinary machines. Among the damaged assets were aircraft tied directly to Russia's long-term air power strategy. Most important among them, the Su-57 Felon, Russia's prized fifth-generation stealth fighter. The aircraft meant to compete with American platforms like the F-22 and F-35. For years, the Su-57 represented prestige as much as military capability, a symbol, a statement that Russia still belonged among the world's elite aerospace powers. But the program has struggled for years. Production delays, Western sanctions, microchip shortages, limited manufacturing capacity, engine development issue. As of 2026, estimates suggested Russia possessed only a very small operational Su-57 fleet. Every single aircraft matters enormously. Losing even one would hurt. Damaging multiple aircraft deep inside supposedly secure territory was strategically humiliating. And the Su-57 was not alone. Su-34 full-back fighter bombers were also reportedly affected. Unlike the stealth-focused Su-57, the Su-34 represented brute force. These aircraft carried heavy guide bombs and strike payloads used extremely across the world in a warfare. They were among the hardest working aircraft in Russia's air campaign, and they had already been suffering losses for months. Every additional hit strained Russia's operational capacity further. This was bigger than aircraft damage, much bigger. The real shock came from what the attack proved. For decades, military strategy relied on a rare area security. Move critical assets deeper inland, increase distance from enemy forces, protect infrastructure with geography. But Ukraine demonstrated that modern autonomous systems can erase geography itself. 1,700 kilometers no longer guaranteed safety. That changes military doctrine everywhere. Suddenly, every strategic air base becomes vulnerable. Every fuel depot, every command center, every logistic hub, every bomber fleet, every radar station, no matter how deep behind the front lie. And that reality terrifies military planners across the world, because traditional air defense systems are not optimized for swarms of cheap autonomous drones flying low and independently. Especially then, those drones cost only a fraction of the system they destroy. A drone costing tens of thousands of dollars threatening aircraft worth over 100 million. That is asymmetric warfare at its most dangerous. For Russia, the psychological damage may have been even worse than the physical destruction, because the attack shattered a functional belief inside the Russian military that the interior of the country remained secure. Now suddenly, the Euros no longer felt distant enough. Strategic bomber bases no longer felt protected. Aircraft shelters no longer guaranteed survival. And military personnel deep inside Russia began understanding something horrifying. Ukraine could reach them too, not eventually, but now. The war was no longer confirmed near the border. It had entered the strategic depth of the Russian Federation itself. What made this movement historic is not just the attack, it is what the attack represents. For over a century, military power depended heavily on expensive industrial systems, battleships, tanks, bombers, fighter jets, massive defense budgets. but Ukraine's drone warfare model is rewriting those rules in real time. Cheap autonomous systems, rapid domestic production, distributed manufacturing, AI-assisted navigation, swarm tactics, adaptive software upgrades. These technologies allow smaller nations to threaten much bigger powers in ways previously unimaginable. And unlike traditional weapons programs that take decades to develop, drones innovation evolve almost monthly. Every battlefield becomes testing laboratory. Every strike becomes software feedback. Every failure improves the next generation. That speed of evolution is terrifying because conventional military procurement system cannot adapt fast enough. The Kremlin now faces a brutal problem with no easy solution. Move aircraft further east. Operational efficiency collapses. Fights become longer. Maintenance chains weakened. Response times increase. Personal shortage grow worse. Protect bases with more air defense systems. Then those systems must be removed from other critical regions, and even advanced defenses struggle against low-flying autonomous drones. Hardened shelters, that becomes enormous expensive across a country as vast as Russia. Meanwhile, Ukraine keep improving, keep adapting, keep producing. This creates a war of exhaustion Russia may not have expected, not merely on the battlefield, but inside its own infrastructure networks. Military analysts around the globe watch the Chagos strike carefully because the implications extend far beyond Ukraine and Russia. This attack demonstrated that modern warfare has entered a new era where cheap systems can threaten a light asset. Distance no longer guarantees survival. Artificial intelligence can reshape battlefield dynamics, and smaller nations can challenge larger military powers asymmetrically. The lessons are already being studied in Washington, Beijing, NATO headquarters, and military academics worldwide. Because if strategic aircraft inside Russia can be reached from 1,700 kilometers away, then nowhere is truly untouchable anymore. For centuries, mountains, ocean, and sheer territorial size protected empires. Today, algorithms cross those distances effortlessly. Autonomous machines do not fear terrain. They do not tire. They do not hesitate. And increasingly, they do not need human guiding them moment by moment. That is the terrifying reality emerging from this war. The age where geography alone could guarantee military security is ending. And on that cold night in April 2026, the flames rose over Russian aircraft hiding beyond the Urals. The world may have witnessed the beginning of a completely new chapter in warfare, one where the sky is no longer belongs to the strongest empire, but whoever masters intelligent machines first. And if that future truly arrived, the military history may remember the attack on Chagos Air Base as the moment the old rules finally died. Peace be upon you. Thank you for watching. See you next time in my next update. Bye.